Altcoin ETFs have been heating up quite a bit recently. In fact, you probably already know about this post here, which said Justin, SEC approved 10 CoinSpot crypto ETF. The SEC has approved the Bitwise 10 crypto index funds conversion into a spot ETF, giving US investors exposure to Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, ADA, Sui, Litecoin, DOT, Link, and Avalanche. Now, quickly after this did get approved, the US regulator halted the approval process for a new cryptocurrency exchange traded fund just hours after initially signing off. This has happened now, I think, twice. And the thing that's crazy about this is, we have been sitting here waiting for these altcoin ETFs to go live. This would have really signaled the shift in the market, and it would have basically accelerated the approval of the individual altcoin ETFs to get approved as well. But now this is halted for the second time. And a lot of people are wondering why. Well, we have over here from Nate Garashi two theories on why the SEC is holding up Grayscale and Bitwise crypto index ETFs. I lean towards the latter theory. Both of these were approved by the SEC Division of Trading and Markets and then immediately stayed. Doesn't make sense. So here we have, my guess is that the SEC wants to finalize some sort of framework or generic listing standards for crypto asset ETPs before they allow these products to convert to ETFs. The other theory here is that one commissioner is slowing things down. Now, I actually think that they are probably trying to get a framework together here because they know that there's going to be a flood of ETF, applications for other altcoins as well. But this is actually technically a good thing if we get some sort of framework in place, because that means that every single application going forward for any altcoin ETF will be accelerated and approved through. Regardless of what the reasons are, I 100% agree with this take. The public sees conflicting actions, approvals followed by sudden reversals, which creates confusion and undermines market confidence. We have here, this reflects the internal disarray at the SEC around digital asset policy. The public sees conflicting actions, approvals followed by sudden reversals, which creates confusion and undermines market confidence. And yeah, I agree. It's kind of ridiculous that this is happening the way that it is. We have been waiting for altcoin ETFs for well over a year now, and the question is, do we ever get them? Well, we're going to go over that in this video as well. But first, I want to talk about something that's very interesting, and that's XRP and XRP ETFs. So we have a post. Now, again, this is two Bitcoin maxis in a room, essentially. And again, when I say two Bitcoin maxis, we're mainly looking at Kyle as well as, James, because again, James loves Bitcoin, even though he is a Bloomberg analyst. We also have Matt Hogan as well from Bitwise. But here we have Wall Street is moving and crypto is in the crosshairs. $12 billion in crypto ETFs, Ethereum demand outpacing supply 32-1. Top advisors now recommending up to 40% crypto in portfolios. This isn't retail, this is retirement fund money entering the game. Now, if we listen closely to this, listen to their argument around XRP ETFs. Check this out.
If you had a Solana and XRP approval, both of them on the same day, which one would get more flows?
Oh, great question. James, you go first.
No. Okay. I will say this: we had a kind of a situation like this where we had futures Solana ETFs and leverage futures or derivatives based ETFs that have exposure to Solana launch before the XRP versions, and the XRP versions have got more assets and flows than the Solana version. So, but that said, like, the derivatives based products are nowhere near as high in the list of demand for investors as the spot products would be. We do have a pseudo spot product from Rex Osprey that went through a whole bunch of loopholes and end arounds to try and get exposure to spot Solana with staking. That's also done very well. I think in the near term, I would bet on XRP, but over the long term, I'd probably bet on Sol getting more assets on that side of things, just because, like you kind of mentioned, like anyone I know who doesn't really know this space at all, like couldn't tell you how a blockchain works. They like XRP. They think it's going to be the back-end settlement system for all banks. So yeah, I think there's just a lot of retail out there. If you go on TikTok or any of these other things in social media platforms, they're talking about XRP and Ripple more so than pretty much anything else. So they have like a really good ground game. Go on Reddit; it's the same thing. Like the ground game is unreal. So yeah, I guess I would say that, but I don't know. It's you're completely guessing at that point. But from an institutional point of view, from my experience in talking to people in this space and people just tangentially interested in what's going on, there seems to be a lot more serious people looking at Solana. That's not to say there's no serious people looking at Ripple or XRP, but definitely leans Solana or Ethereum from my point of view.
Yeah, I actually agree. I think XRP would do better out of the gate. I think the average opinion of Solana is better than it is for XRP across crypto investors, but that's not who buys the ETF on day one.
Exactly.
It's the passion, right? And so I went to an XRP conference in Vegas on a Saturday. There were 1,200 people in the room. Every seat was taken. That's crazy. Try to get that in a TradFi conference. No one's going on a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
There is an army of people who are really passionate about XRP, and I think it would do exceptionally well out of the gate. It doesn't matter, again, that 90% of people hate it. What matters is 10% of people love it. That's what drives the flows on those initial days. And I think it would do well. If Solana is ripping, I think Solana is facing somewhat of a narrative transition that it's going through. And so depending on when it launched and where it is in that transition, I think that would matter a lot. If Solana is ripping, it would do well. But my base case out of the gate would be XRP, at least for the first few months.
And this is also telling you, like, listen, we know how much volume and how much demand there is for XRP. I really think that XRP would outperform Solana ETFs regardless of the time frame. I also think that XRP ETFs could outpace Ethereum ETFs as well. I think the argument here is that, all right, well, Solana, there's a lot of hype for it. So that means that Solana is probably going to, not see a ton of demand initially. XRP will probably see that. But then over time, Solana will outpace XRP. I just don't see the hype dying down for XRP, especially once people realize the potential behind XRP. But also the serious players behind XRP, like they said in this interview that there wasn't a lot of serious players behind XRP that are mainly behind Solana. That makes no sense to me. Especially considering the fact that when we think about Ripple, they're working with the biggest banks out there, the biggest players in TradFi. And guess what? The attention is still on XRP and the XRPL. So I just don't see how that could be an argument here. I really do see retail flooding into XRP. It's the third largest cryptocurrency, and it's also way cheaper than Solana. And that's exactly what retail really looks at as well. For an example, Kyle made a great argument over on X. He said when retail sees $120,000 per Bitcoin and 3.7K Ethereum, they go searching for the next one. That's when the lowest priced large cap with brand recognition becomes the magnet for irrational capital. And where do you think they'll go first? So everyone's thinking, all right, well, what about, XRP? Right? Like, why wouldn't we be thinking about that? No, they're thinking, oh, Solana. Why? Solana's, at $100 or so. That's still too expensive. Retail is going to be looking at XRP, in my opinion. It just makes a lot of sense. It's the third largest cryptocurrency. It's in the dollar still, so it's fairly affordable. That's what they're going to be looking at. And in terms of brand recognition, I think that the XRP brand is already there. It might not be, as hyped up as like Solana, for example, because of the VCs and things like that. But I really do think that this will cause that flood into XRP, especially for the ETF wave. Now, if we're thinking about this, how many ETFs are there for XRP? Well, we already know that there's a significant amount of filings. This was as of April 8th. Since then, there wasn't really a lot of additional filings at all. So this is what we can kind of go off of. The only additional one was Trump, actually. And that was back in the beginning of July. We have Justin Trump's Truth Social files for a crypto blue chip ETF, including Bitcoin, XRP, and Solana, which again, Solana is still definitely in the room with XRP, but I just think that XRP demand would be more than Solana, especially just going off of the price. Now, the question is, when are we going to see approvals, right? Like, when do these approvals actually start hitting, and are they going to happen this year? Well, I personally believe that they are going to hit this year. And what we kind of go off of is what Standard Chartered told us back in April, right? They predict that XRP could surge to over 500% to $12.50 by 2028. I think that their time frame is a little bit off here, but also expects an XRP spot ETF approval in Q3 of this year. And I don't think that I need to tell you guys, but we are in Q3 of the year now, and it seems as though we're getting closer to ETF approvals for altcoins. I think once this ETF decision by the SEC is solved, we don't know what they're doing here. If it is a framework or like a generic listing standard, I think that this will be easily achievable for any altcoin that is trying to get an approval. And when I say an altcoin, I mean like any major asset manager that wants to launch an altcoin ETF. I think that the standards here are going to be very easy to abide by. So we'll probably see this framework launched within the next month or two, maybe. And then after that, all of the ETF applications that are already there would probably be abiding by those standards, if anything. So all of these ETF applications that we already know about with XRP, all of these could be approved within the next 3 months. Obviously, we take them one day at a time, but I'm definitely very bullish on what happens next here. And when it comes to even BlackRock, we already know that if we go back in time a little bit to just the end of June, when Ripple announced that they were dropping their cross appeal and that the SEC was expected to drop theirs as well, we have yet to actually hear from the SEC on this, by the way. But Nate said closed chapter on this clears way for spot XRP ETF, also clears way for BlackRock to jump in. And yeah, I do agree here. And even over here, we do see, besides that, I think Vanguard should allow brokerage access to crypto ETFs. Here are my 3 most strongly held beliefs on category, right? BlackRock should absolutely file for spot XRP, Solana, etc. ETFs, crypto index ETF as well, protect their current crypto ETF leadership position. Not too late for State Street, 3rd largest ETF issuer, to enter category. Honestly, don't understand strategy here. Do they think that they're somehow protecting gold ETFs? Schwab should file for/launch spot crypto ETFs. Why give advantage to Fidelity, their primary competitor? And I agree with all of this. Listen, the thing is that I feel as if BlackRock is just waiting on the sidelines. I think that they're waiting on the sidelines because they are aware of what the SEC is doing here. Call me crazy, but it goes back to even the Bitcoin ETFs, right? We heard from Gary Gensler on multiple occasions that he's not going to be launching a spot Bitcoin ETF. This was into like 2023, okay? All the way throughout 2023, we kept hearing about, spot ETFs, and then we get the approval. We get the approval the second that BlackRock files for a Bitcoin spot ETF. Why? We even heard from Gary Gensler saying that he didn't have a choice. There was no choice for him to, say, oh, well, I don't know if we should have a Bitcoin spot ETF. There was no choice. He had to just push it through. And the question is why? It was immediately after BlackRock filed for that ETF. And it's because I believe that BlackRock is the control here in the room. Believe it or not, I think that, BlackRock is pulling the strings around a lot of these ETF decisions, just like it was with, Bitcoin or even Ethereum. So the question here is BlackRock just waiting out this framework? Do we know that this framework is in place? Do we know that it's, being worked on? We have no idea. But one thing that's very clear to me is that I believe that this will get, worked on and probably completely solved by, I would say, the end of August. And by September, October, we'll probably see a lot of ETFs trading live around altcoins, not just baskets as well, but actual altcoin, ETFs will be trading live as well. So I'm very excited about the future here. I think that the altcoin ETF boom is a catalyst for altcoins, especially XRP. And I do believe that XRP will be outperforming Solana. I also think that XRP could quickly outpace Ethereum too. We got to remember that XRP flipped Ethereum at one point in time. It's not unlikely that it does again. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.